How do you stay motivated and consistently produce high quality content at a high volume?
This is something that I learned the hard way initially. So sophomore year, I was creating content that honestly I didn't care about. I was getting paid like no money, but I was doing it for the resume and it was a grind. I was posting multiple times a day and I hated it. I burnt out within 3 months and I realized I actually enjoy creating content. I love being creative, but I don't want to burn out again. And I realized it's creating content that I like to create and I'm proud to create. For me, that's humor. I love making people laugh. That's how I have avoided burnout to the best of my abilities. It all just comes from I create so much content, but nearly all of the content is content that I'm proud to create.
This episode of Inside the Process is powered by Trainual, the one app that organizes who does what and how. Check it out at trainual.com.
Today is not about us, it's about you. So this is going to be jam-packed. Tons of dad jokes coming.
We are right now laying the groundwork for who is going to be leading tomorrow.
This song is such a jam.
Ideas don't build multi-million-dollar businesses. It's the implementation and execution of those ideas that do.
Self-made can lead to self-destruction. You are successful at what you give attention to.
This is why I was created. This is why I was made. I was made to do this.
It's about how to build your playbook.
That was such an incredible session.
Well, what is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Inside the Process, the real-time podcast where we dive into all the best practices to help you improve and level up the work that you're doing.
That's right. And the way we do that is we bring on the brightest minds and thought leaders to come chat with us and discuss their insights, their strategies. And guess what? You all get to do this with us together. That's right. So you can pop your questions whenever you got them in the chat. We'll definitely be monitoring that. And we'll bring those questions up during the course of our session together. And it's going to be a great time.
Awesome. Well, I'm Mallory, a 10-year systems and ops veteran turned marketer, and I'm here with Shawn, the super awesome training guy.
That's right. And we are your operations and training super duo, and we are your hosts for Inside the Process. And I've also got the sun all over me, so hopefully the sun will move away from me at some point in time today. But I am so excited because today we get to have with us our new friend, Aiden Brannigan. So Aiden, he creates content that is viewed by over 240 million times each year, driving 7 figures in revenue. But, for some reason, his parents still think he's unemployed, right? So I absolutely love that. Yeah. Aiden, I want to turn it over to you. Kind of walk us through a little bit your journey, how you got here, and we'll get to know you a little more today.
Yeah, thank you for the intro. I was a product of, honestly, some luck with COVID. I was in college when COVID hit. So school was online. I had a bunch of time. So I got a couple internships in social media because nobody wanted to hire a sophomore in college for anything other than making memes. And then I kind of ran with it. So I've been making memes, creating a ton of content since sophomore year of college. And now I'm 23. So it's been like 4 years. And that's how I'm here today doing cool things like this.
Well, yeah, if you get a chance to go check out Aiden's content, you're going to have a great time. We're going to talk all about it here today. Over to you, Mallory.
Yeah. Well, welcome. We're so glad to have you on Inside the Process. So you and I actually met on LinkedIn, and your content is hilarious. You're wicked smart, and you've built one hell of a community out there on LinkedIn, and the businesses that you're sharing content with on Instagram and just all over socials. You're doing that for people and companies driving revenue and organic growth. And for those of you that don't know what organic growth is, that means no ad spend. Can you share with us your strategy for creating content that really resonates with these massive audiences that you're sharing with?
Yeah, so it starts with a lot of research. Like, to really make content that actually resonates with someone, you have to know their ins and outs of their days, like the subtleties of what they're experiencing in their job. to really be able to like the wow factor with content that's relatable and like really goes viral within niches is you want the audience to be like, holy crap, do they have a camera in my room? Like, how do they know I experienced that? And then they immediately send it to their coworkers who are experiencing the same thing. So it starts with a ton of research, whether that's Reddit. I personally use Reddit a ton. So if I'm creating a marketing meme, which I create a lot of marketing memes, I go into r/marketing, see the top posts, see the, the lingo, what people are talking about this week, and I'll spin up a meme about it. Or Twitter. There's a bunch of different resources, but the best content is based off of some rock solid research and truly knowing the intricacies of the niche you're targeting.
With the vast amount of content that you're producing daily, how do you ensure that your content stands out and really captures the attention of that audience that you're talking about targeting?
So this is like one of my like inevitable truths, I would say, that I like pin my like point of views on social media. And it's like a lot of people go against this, which is fine. But I actually believe that a little bit of ignorance in like the niche is good, meaning, let me explain myself, like not knowing this is what we always do, right? So like coming in with fresh perspective. So I think one of the things that benefited me, it does detract. Like I'm 23, I'm young. So some people are like, I'm not listening to this kid. But where I do benefit is I don't know the industry standards yet. So I can come in and I can like kind of break things and shake things up. And that immediately differentiates me. So I don't know, at least when I started creating content, I didn't know what everyone else typically does as a marketer on LinkedIn. So I just did my own thing, whether that was tweeting about Tesla's stock price or slinging memes. But I'm a true believer that like differentiation is like should be at the top of your priority, because everyone's creating content. Like my mom, she's a legit content creator. She doesn't even know it. She posts like 3 times a week about like her kids doing great things. So there's so many people trying to post on the timeline. And if you can't separate yourself from those, and I think looking outside of your industry, outside of what everybody else is doing. So like if you're looking to create content about operating a business and you want to stand out, like I personally would advise, don't look at what other operators in the industry are talking about. Maybe go watch a YouTube video on gardening or something and like pull these abstract thoughts together to bring something unique to the industry that hasn't been talked about, or a perspective that hasn't brought. That's what I like to do. So look outside of what everybody else is looking at. So I'll take it one step further. I'm a social media manager and I create a crap ton of content, but I have no personal social media other than my LinkedIn, and I have a burner Twitter account. So like I don't have a personal Instagram, I don't have Snapchat, like I have a business TikTok account, but I'm still able to make content. Yeah.
I became an operations leader at a very young age. I was same age as you. I was like 23, 24, doing, these big level projects with people who were a lot more senior than me, a lot more experienced, and probably faced a lot of the pushback that you faced and just kept chugging along. And I will tell you that the people who, how do I put this, kind of try to keep you down because you don't have as much experience or they're not listening to you, those people tend to stunt their own growth and you quickly will surpass them. And I think with social media, it's the same thing. Like you being 23 is no different than me coming in at 32, almost 32. And we probably have the same amount of experience because the algorithm changes so frequently, trends change so frequently. Reels are brand new. So whether I'm 31 or 23, it doesn't matter. Like reels are brand new on the scene. And so we're all learning together. And I think just having that mentality of like age and experience really doesn't matter in this space. It's just following trends and being willing to pivot and learn and grow with the people around you. So kudos to you for continuing to do that and just show the results and, come with receipts.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Something that just made me think about. So I'm pushing 46 this year. So, a lot of this for me comes as a new realm, right? A newer realm. I've been around for a while. I taught kids in school. I taught teachers in school how to use online tools and social media a little bit. But for me, it's still kind of a newer thing. And I feel like there's a lot that a lot of our customers, especially they use Trainual, that may be in that boat as well. And so a question that I come back to a lot is, why is it so valuable to create this type of a presence for yourself, right? As a business, why, I didn't grow up with this content or this kind of stuff. Why should I really spend some time and energy in this? What value does that bring to me as a business owner in this day and time right now?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. I have to answer that all the time. So I have a couple different responses to that, but it's one of the most high leverage things you can do. And if you think of the biggest brands in the world, like the most powerful brands, I always think Nike, like their brand is like top tier, unmatched. They create so much content, right? So like we can't all be Nike, but that's just something to look after. But a thing I often ask is like, okay, if you don't want to create organic content, tell me this. What happens if you stop running your paid ads? What happens to your business if you stop running your paid ads? Do you have any community? Do you have any owned audience that you create content for, whether it be an SMS list or an email list? If the answer is no, then it's like, okay, there's the value of the organic community creating content online is like, otherwise you're too, like you want to be diversified a little bit. Otherwise you're too reliant on the paid ads, and Meta could be like, you know what? Screw you, we're kicking you off this platform. You can't run ads on our platform anymore. So that's usually one of the answers I give for why organic content is so valuable. And also you can't sell to an empty room. Like no matter how great your product is, if you have nobody there that you can sell it to or show, then that's why content comes into play and building an audience, is because that gives you the room full of people that you can sell to when you want.
I really appreciate that. That's really insightful for me as well, as, I'm kind of building my own brand out there, so this is really important information. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Aiden, there's the 4 right there. You can just go to town. Let's talk about these. You pick whichever one you want to chat about first. We'll go there and kind of tell the story around it.
I'll go with the Stark Industries one first. We can just touch on that briefly. So this is the first post I created on LinkedIn ever. It says 2 years ago, but it was like, it's almost 3 years ago at this point. And it went crazy viral. I had just seen the new Spider-Man movie and I loved it. And at a time when all my other friends were like announcing on LinkedIn that they just got internships at cool companies like Capital One or Apple. And I didn't have an internship, but I wanted that internship. And I went to a state school. I went to the University of Maryland. I had an average GPA. Like I was just on paper, you would see, okay, he's just like average, like every other student. Nothing stands out. But to me, my humor and my wittiness was my differentiator. So when I would get on calls with interviews, I feel like I'd be able to stand out easier. So I was like, how do I do that through written word on LinkedIn to get an internship? So I decided to the way I look at innovation is like not reinventing the wheel, but innovating on top of the wheel. So the wheel that was already there were the announcement posts that people in my classes were posting, like, oh, I got this internship at Capital One. Thank you, Joe, for helping me get the internship. So I was like, boom, Stark Industries, let's go. I just got an internship there. But on a more serious note, I'm looking for a marketing internship. And it went super viral. And I had 50 to 60 like inbound opportunities where people were basically like, we'll hire you. Like no interview, we'll hire you. And I was like, so I basically got to pick between, I whittled it down to Disney, Overtime Sports, which is like a smaller media company, and Meta. And I was like, I'm a huge sports fan. I love the Ravens, love the Orioles, love all Maryland sports. So I picked Overtime, and I'm also a massive Drake fan. My dog's named Drake, and Drake just invested in Overtime. So I was like, oh, I get to work at a company that Drake has equity in. So I took that job, worked there for like 7 months. It absolutely sucked, but we can talk about that later. But that's the first post that really got me to where I am today.
I love that. I love that story. And again, I think one of the things that really strikes me with these is the realness. We're talking about a little bit about that before we got on here, is that today we really dig the realness of conversational nature of people, right? And so I love how real this is and how fun it is as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I love too, like, humor is your thing. And so I don't want people to walk away feeling like, oh, I have to go and like be a comedian online. And if that's your thing, like channel that. If you are the guy that, at the dinner table is telling dad jokes or mom jokes, I've got my own great mom jokes, then by all means lean into that. But if you're like on the more serious side, or if you're a little more introverted and factual, like, you can definitely lean into your personality. And so I think about like my first viral post, it reached 7 million people. It had 90,000 likes on it, and it had 11 or 10,000 comments and the same number, 11 or 10,000 reshares. So, I mean, it just like blew my mind.
Insane.
My boss at the time, she said, well, she's still my boss. I don't know why I said at the time, but she was like, it's a movement at this point. And it was very serious. It was talking about anxiety in the workplace and high performance, and how leaders can really channel into that. And so I love what you're saying about like, just figure out what relates to people and be vulnerable and honest about that. For your case, it was humor and you needing to find an internship. For me, it was like anxiety and high performance, and how like I deal with that with my leaders, and how other leaders can help me in that regard. So it's just like being honest, telling stories, being vulnerable, and not being like cheesy. Like, don't take something out of a book and like reshare it and expect that it's going to go far, because it's not your personality or your story.
Yeah, that is super accurate. And that's something I did want to touch on. Like, what I do and the route I took is absolutely not for everyone. And honestly, for some industries, I'd recommend completely avoiding it. Like, but yeah, the basis of it is like, this is true to me, and like, this is who I am. So like, find what that is for you, Mallory, like you're saying, and do that. That's the point of for me, it's humor. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, find your brand voice for your company and figure out what that looks like. Like, brands can tell a story. Brands can have a personality. Like Trainual has, I think, one, and even the marketing millennials have two of like the most, wildly relatable personalities that I can think of in the game. And so I definitely think like that's something that companies should really figure out, is how, if my company was a person, what would that person be like? And for Trainual, it's somebody who tells the dad jokes, but is also like the guy you'd love to mentor with, or the girl you'd love to mentor with. Like, that's how we see it. Like, somebody who's humorous, but also really professional, relatable, and somebody that you would really trust to help you grow and build yourself as a person, as a company. And so like, that's our persona. And we think about that every time we post content.
That makes me think about, so the whole point of our conversation today is talking about how to create and build these raving fans, right? You cannot do that if you are not audience centric. You can't do that if you are not, to your point, Aiden, true to yourself, and also that who your client is. You know who your customer persona is, right? And being able to cater to that as much as you possibly can. We'll share a little bit later on from Ken Blanchard, who writes a book called Raving Fans, specifically related to customer service. But that's one of those big ideas is, hey, you really got to know your people, know your customers really, really well, know what makes them tick. And that's what can help you fuel. Hopefully those align with who you are, what your business is. And then that helps you to fuel the content you provide out to them. Well, let's take a look at another one of these. What's another one that stands out? Mallory or Aiden?
So for the company I work for, the marketing millennials, and we're like a media company, and we're targeting marketers and specifically millennials. And I'm the social media manager, but I'm a Gen Z 23-year-old, but I have to consistently set myself in the shoes of a millennial. And it's a challenging ask. It's like, it's tough, but over time it gets easier. Just like with anything, but I know, we were talking about this earlier, but like the reason I chose this one is, I'm basically making a meme about myself from the perspective of my target audience. And like this goes back to the research part, but you really have to know what the people you're creating content for are experiencing on the day to day. Like in this picture, I'm the 24-year-old, and like, I don't even know that when I go into work and I'm next to the 30-year-old, they feel like they're ancient next to me based off the things I do and say, I have to go into Reddit and see that someone's posting like, oh my God, we just hired a Gen Z new kid, and I feel like the language he's speaking is like, it's foreign to me. And then I'm like, oh my God. And then like I go into work the next day, and then I realize I say something, and my coworker's like, Aiden, what is that word? And then I'm like, oh my God. And then this meme comes about from that. So really the best content comes from like lived experiences, because if you're experiencing it, more than likely someone else is experiencing it as well. And that's how you get the virality aspect.
You can be real. You can tell them that we inspired this meme, because I remember specifically having that same interaction with you when you first started. And I was like, Aiden, what the heck does this comment even mean?
Yes.
I can't remember what the word was because it was so foreign to me, but I remember having that same interaction. So glad I could inspire some content. Just
hilarious. Hilarious.
So I guess level with me for a second. What advice could you give to someone who's like, yeah, can't get on board with this Gen Z meme thing? I mean, millennials love memes too, but we've grown up with generations, ahead of us as well that are like, absolutely not. And we would never dare, like the millennials would never have dared to put a meme up, even though we're like, but that's like really funny. Like we wanted to, but we weren't brave enough to. And then the Gen Zs came in and they just are like, yeah, we don't care. We're posting memes. We're going to grow this thing like crazy. I mean, you've helped Trainual with a lot of our content, and we've, gained 1,000 followers almost a week from a lot of the stuff that we've been sharing that's really funny and relatable. But some companies are like, yeah, but that's just not my brand style, which is what I was just talking about earlier. It's just not part of our brand persona, if you will. We just don't want to dive into memes. And so how can companies still create engaging content if memes is not their thing? And so maybe it's like some kind of base level of humor, and maybe we just scrap humor altogether. Like walk me through some of those scenarios for how to create engaging content within those contexts.
Yeah. So scrapping humor altogether, the thing is you want to let your audience know that there's a human behind the screen, right? Like people relate way easier and quicker to human and like that sense of humanity versus like the logo. Like no matter how cool your brand is, like people want to know that there's a human behind the screen. So if there's any subtle ways you can do that, even maybe like an intentional typo in a sentence that has no massive impact on the overall message, or like just a lowercase, starting a sentence with lowercase, there's subtle things you can do, or just adding a little bit of personality. But if you talk about things that are relatable to your niche, immediately people will assume and sense that there's a human behind it. So that's like, those are like the subtle things. But I think to really get into like, to create relatable written content, write how you speak. So if you're like creating content about in the fintech world or something, and let's say you're like a CFO, instead of like trying to pompously talk and use words that you would never use in spoken language, don't write those in your content. Like write how you'd speak, and people will immediately see that, okay, that's actually Shawn talking. That's cool. Let me hear what he has to say. And that's what I do. Like if I'm writing a post, I literally speak it out loud and write it. And then obviously if there's any uhs or ums, I cut that out. But that's really write how you speak.
Yeah.
I want to jump into that one really quickly. Sorry, Mallory. That one just really hit me because one of the things that is the hardest to do is to translate information in a way that is relatable. And I think about this in terms of, documenting processes or policies, which is what we do a lot here at Trainual, right? And a lot of those things come out very wooden and very, robotic sounding when you just type them out, like the formal process for a thing. And what I've done is I've coached a number of people to do this because I've done it myself and it works really well, is to just record yourself talking through a thing, right? And I'll use Loom because Loom is, I can record and it provides the transcript for me. right? So I'll just kind of talk through a thing very naturally, very, conversationally, and then pull that back up with the recording, kind of go through, looking through the scripting, and I'll extract from the script, from the transcript, I should say, the information that I may ultimately put into a post or that I would put into a document here in Trainual. And that's a way that I've found that helps to really bring out like the realness, that you're talking about, the genuine you. And I love your call a few moments ago, like intentional grammatical areas at some point. I think that's fantastic. But yeah, just a way to bring out the realness out is a little thing that I try to do that works out really well.
My type A could never do a typo. Like, sorry, I can't. I cannot get on board with that.
It's hilarious.
But it makes me think a lot about like a motto that I've lived by for a while before I was ever a marketer, like back when I was in operations and creating my own content on my personal brand. And it's like, if it looks like an ad or sounds like an ad, it's going to get scrolled on by. And so a lot of people think like if they share an image, like they have to put their brand logo on it. And I'm like, don't do that. Just share the image without your brand's logo. It's coming from your brand page because there's some kind of science behind it, I'm sure, with like the minute I see that brand logo on your image, I'm like, ad, lame, boring, scroll. So like that's something to consider. And then I'm going to piggyback off of what Shawn's saying too. We have something in Trainual called Smart Tools. It's brand new. It's like our AI capabilities that we're continuing to bring to the platform. And you can actually like highlight a section of your training or processes and say like, hey, make this sound more fun, make this sound more friendly, make this sound more engaging. And it'll do it for you, but it's also like a learning experience of like, oh, that's how you would say it. And it like kind of trains your own brain a little bit on like how to speak and how to create content like that. And then I would say you could take the same concept outside of a tool like Trainual if you're creating like copy and go to something like ChatGPT or Claude.ai. I feel like I need like a partnership with them because I mention them so much. Like I need some kind of like, I don't know, buy-in with them. But it's really a tool that I use all the time. I'll take an idea because I'm very direct. I'm an introvert. I'm very operations driven. So I'm a little on the drier side sometimes, especially when I'm creating content. And so like I'll put all of my thoughts and ideas and like the message that I want to share. And then I'll tell Claude like, hey, you are a hilarious Gen Z, content creator named Aiden who works at the Marketing Millennials, right? And you're head of social and your content is like award winning. Like, give it this whole persona. Take this concept and make it sound more like somebody who fits this persona. And like, it'll spit something back out to me. And I'm like, oh, like that's how he would say it. So, and then you can like kind of roll with it from there. So anyway, all that to say, there are resources and tools. Like we are in the prime of our lives for tools that can help us to create content that doesn't suck.
Yes. And piggybacking off your first statement about ads, for everyone listening, the best person that I've found currently at running ads is Mr. Beast in his videos. He is by far the best. The way he does it, he doesn't even skip a beat with the storytelling of the YouTube video itself and still plugs effectively the brand that is advertising him. So I'd highly recommend watching one of his videos. I don't really watch much of them, but I watch him for that reason specifically. He has a bunch of fantastic ads with Spotify that are like, or Shopify, actually. Shopify, best ads I've ever seen.
Yeah, love him or hate him. He's, I think a billionaire at this point. He's like just signed like a mega deal with Prime Video. Like he gets content. And so it's one of those things where like, we're not telling you that you have to agree with like Mr. Beast's philosophies or content style. It's like, just take all of that out of it and figure out what these people are doing really well, like their frameworks for how they're sharing content, and use that.
Boom. Exactly that.
So that kind of gets us to this point of, as you're creating a lot of this content, I know you get feedback, and feedback comes from like all different kinds of places, right? So as a content creator, again, as you get this feedback, how do you prioritize and incorporate the feedback that you get? Because you're going to get lots of different. How do you sort through the types of feedback? Because we'll talk a little more about the trolls here in a few minutes. But how do you take that feedback in and make heads or tails out of it and go, yes, I'm going to act on this, even when, and maybe when you go, well, a lot of people have said this, but I'm not really going to act on this because I know this. I'd love to hear you unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. And I feel like there are two buckets that you can talk about too. Like there's like the companies that you work for, but then also the audiences that are giving you feedback as well.
No. Yeah. So with the audience part first, a lot of times, like we get this comment, like with the marketing millennials, is like, the name is so dumb. Why would they pigeonhole themselves just to be targeting millennials? Like, there's so many marketers out there. But there's a saying that's like, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody, which basically means like, if you're talking to everybody, your content's not going to relate to any one specific person. So they're not going to feel like you're speaking to them, and they're not going to buy from you. That's what I feel like that means. So a lot of times we get comments, and like I make a meme that is like pretty niche, and like only millennials who are marketers will understand it. And then we'll get comments, and like, because it's not perfect, it's organic growth. We have Gen Z followers. We have pretty much followers from every generation except Gen Alpha. And they'll be like, this like is so dumb. Why are you speaking to millennials? And like, you have to like synthesize that information and realize, oh, that person's 74 years old. We're not trying to speak to them. So it's fine that they feel that way. I'm not even going to reply back to their message because it's a waste of time. But if it comes to the point where we have a 37-year-old marketer who's commenting and it's like, this is stupid, like this makes no sense, then I'm assuming we missed a beat there. And it can be like, oh, what happened? And actually just recently, like a week ago, we had someone comment like, hey, the newsletters haven't been as good recently. I look at their profile and I'm like, okay, they're obviously millennial. In their bio, it says they're a marketer. Okay, they're a marketing manager. They're a decision maker. This actually, I want to lean into this. Let's reply to his comment and see what he's feeling. And like, let's get in the DMs, have a legitimate conversation. And that kind of gets, I think we'll touch on it at some point, but that's the translation from organic social to customer service. Like that's the bridge right there. So that's like dealing, you have to really like, can't take everything to heart. And like, if they're not the person you're targeting, like you can honestly ignore their opinion. And if you feel fit to reply back, you can, but it's probably a waste of your time and energy. So focus on the people that you're actually targeting. And then with feedback, working with the companies, Mallory, is that what you meant by that? Like I'm creating the content for the companies, like, oh, I get a lot of feedback. I have to balance what my creative vision is versus theirs.
Yeah. I mean, even thinking about like us working together, there's been a lot of times where it's like, hey, like, I think we should pivot, or, we want to say this or we don't, like, and I feel like we're more relaxed probably than most companies. So I would think you have a lot of like legal hoops and just like too many stakeholders and just a lot of feedback and not just, one person. So kind of walk me through what that looks like.
Yeah. So I'll try to set the precedent like before even working that like, this is how I work. If you really want to see this type of success, I'm just going to let you know there's going to be some things that happen that you might be a little uneasy about. And like from the jump, if they're like, can't do that, then we don't work together. But a thing I do is like when I get on a meeting is like, I'll be like, what are the do's and don'ts of your brand? And they're like, honestly, we don't care. You can do whatever you want. And I'm like, yeah, bull crap. So I'll go to the next meeting and I'll purposely bring them a meme that I know will push their boundaries so that they can recognize it and be like, oh, no way. Can't post that. Like I did it one or two times with Trainual in the beginning, but in that really, I can like get the guardrails up, and that's how I can like moving forward, make the feedback process easier. But that's like the testing of the waters. I try to nip as many of the things in the butt, like from the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's not perfect.
Do you have any advice for anybody that's listening on essentially like how to get out of their own way? Like people who are maybe like little over controlling or not willing to pivot at all or try new things. like how to recognize that you're potentially creating, it's not really a bottleneck's not the right word, but preventing yourself from growing organically, like, and not being willing to pivot and experiment.
Yeah, my I guess response to that is like pretty simple, and it's like, if you're creating content, like, ask yourself, would I consume this content? Like, is this even interesting to me? Like, even if you're not necessarily in the target audience, but like, just set yourself in the target audience, like in the shoes of the target audience. Wouldn't you actually read that content you just wrote? And like, if the answer is no, it's like, why are you posting that?
Yeah. A+ answer, by the way. Like, I know I kind of threw that one in there as like a sneak in question, but solid answer. And I think the same thing. Like, people have always told me with my personal brand on LinkedIn, you'll hear everybody say, like, just ship it, just post it, post anything. And like, it's just not what I believe in. And I'm a quality person. And if I feel like the post and the image is not actionable, relatable, like high quality, I just won't post. And there are other people out there that are like, just whatever your thoughts are for the day, just ship it, because, quantity. And I feel like I've defied the odds with that a little bit. There were like a couple of days last week where I didn't post, and I was so nervous that I was like, I had tanked the algorithm. But I was like, whatever. 5 days had gone by or so, and I posted something, and it had like 916 people that liked it, and just thousands and thousands of views. And so I will challenge that a little bit and say that for me personally, in my experience, it's definitely quality over quantity. And I know you can probably talk to us about like the benefits also of quantity and posting consistently. But it's like, there's definitely a balance of, if you don't have the time to create quality, consistent content, like, bring somebody in who can create that for you, because there has to be a balance between the two. You can't just throw stuff up.
Yeah. If your audience is like, if they can clearly tell, oh, they put no time into this, why would I put time into reading it? Like, that's like an easy translation for the audience.
Absolutely.
Hey, Mallory, those characteristics are awesome. And I got two of them, but then my brain went somewhere else. So actionable, relatable, and your third was?
Oh, I don't know. It's mostly like, actionable, relatable, and like, does it tell a story? Does it make me feel good? Like, what do I get out of it at the end of the day is really like my biggest thing. But I feel like actionable and relatable are like the two to take away. Can I do something with this information in my life after you've taken my time to consume it? And is it relatable? Is it something that's going to stick with me because I'm a learner? Like, I don't consume content just because I like to consume content. I feel like extroverts are like, yeah, like, this is my way to like hang out with people in the morning. And I'm like, no, like, I need to just be learning, and this has to help me grow and develop as a human. Like, everything I consume has to be intentional, I guess, in some way. So I like to put that out there into the world. Like, if you're going to take the time to read my post, I want you to walk away feeling good, feeling like, wow, I related to that. This is going to stick with me. Like, maybe I'm going to think about it later on, even this week. And I feel like I have an actionable thing that I can take away and implement into my life to make my life easier or better or what have you.
I love that so much. Nice job.
Yeah. So a little bit of a pivot, because that's kind of like personal brand type of content that we're talking about now. So I guess like bringing it back to company content. And you were talking about, I guess, like, feedback and how you deal with that. And it made me think of, dealing with trolls and the negative comments. It was one of the hardest things that I mentally had to deal with when I became a content marketer. I just was not prepared for like the level of strain of just dealing with people saying the most outlandish things. And a lot of times you can delete those. Sometimes there's like truth to what they're saying though too. And like, you can like, I guess like the delivery is not great. So you can kind of like spin it and create like a healthier conversation around it. Can you talk to us a little bit how you handle criticism and negativity while maintaining that positive environment and creating those more like collaborative conversations. And I guess also too, like when you choose to delete things.
Yeah. So when I choose to delete things is when it's like a obvious, like they're trying to defame the brand, and like me responding back would do nothing but add fuel to their fire. So that's an immediate delete. But yeah, I'm like a big, like, I'm a huge reader. So I love reading like self-help books, whether it's like business self-help, like, or mental health or like financial health, like stuff like that. Just so I've consumed a lot of different content, and my dad is the same way, but he's kind of given me this advice that like if you wouldn't take advice from the person, don't take criticism from the person. So that's kind of tough on social media, but like, if I see just some random Joe Schmo is absolutely hating on our content, I realize, one, nobody doing more than me, right? In like a good sense, like nobody doing more than me would try to put me down. Like if you think about your mentors, they're never trying to put you down because quite frankly, they got more going on than you, and they're very ambitious themselves. They don't have time to put anybody down. So people who have the time in their day to put others down and like maliciously comment, they don't have much going on. So I feel bad for them every time they comment. If it's not defaming the brand, I'll leave the comment up and I'll let them like whatever. And like, who knows, maybe someone in our community will be like, dude, stop. Like, this is a great brand. And like, it's a great look that we have advocates and we have raving fans that are advocating for our brand on our behalf. So I try to leave like that opportunity out there. But one of the first times I ever went viral, like beginning of sophomore year of college, I was working for this super small startup, and it was on TikTok, and I made this video, and it was a video of me talking, and it got like a couple million views. So many comments were just roasting me. Like it was just flaming me. And I was like, I didn't know what to do. That was my first experience. Like that was like my welcome to the league moment. Like I didn't know what to do. I was reading them all. I was refreshing them, reading them. And I went into my basement and I was just like, what the heck? And I had this pit in my stomach. I wanted to delete the video. And my mom came downstairs and she's like, you better not be reading those comments, are you? And I'm like, I'm reading them and they're getting them to me. And she's like, she's that, like, from that point on, she was like, whatever they say is not true. Like, and so since that point, my mom's my biggest supporter with all of my content. She reads in everything I do.
Your first raving fan?
Yeah, she's my first raving fan. And there's this saying, if you want to start a podcast or you want to start creating content, just tell your mom or tell your dad, because immediately they're going to tell their friends and you'll have 10 raving fans. Like that's a hack. But she kind of set me straight from that point on, like Aiden, you got this, ignore what they're saying. And so from that point, anytime I feel like I'm getting too entrenched in the negative contents, I know exactly where I was sitting on my couch, and my mom was to the right, leaning up against our ping pong table. And that, like, it was like just a pivotal moment. I forget exactly what she said, but all I know is afterwards, just haven't thought too deep about like trolls.
Yeah. It's a good segue, and I mean good in like the most sincere way, I promise.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, content creation can be a grind, and I mean, it can create burnout. It's why you talked about like not having a ton of like personal social accounts. It's why so many social media managers don't, because it does create so much like mental load. How do you stay motivated and consistently produce high quality content at a high volume?
Yeah, this is something that I learned the hard way initially. So sophomore year, I was creating content that honestly I didn't care about. Like I was getting paid like no money, but I was doing it for the resume, right? And it was a grind. I was posting multiple times a day, and I hated it. I burnt out within 3 months, and I realized, okay, I actually enjoy creating content. I love being creative, but I don't want to burn out again. So how do I avoid burnout? Okay. And I realized it's creating content that is content I like to create and I'm proud to create. For me, that's humor. I love making people laugh. And so that's how I have avoided burnout to the best of my abilities. It all just comes from, I create so much content, but nearly all of the content is content that I'm proud to create. So it's like, I can do it as long as possible, and I can do it longer than the competition because it's true to me and I'm like proud to do it. Like, so that's just one of the things like identified early, but I learned it the hard way that like I was creating content that I hated and I burned out.
Do you feel like you find companies who you can create content for, like you have the same type of vision? And I'm thinking about people that are listening now, that maybe are thinking about bringing in a content creator or are content creators. And they're like, man, I don't love my job right now. And maybe it's not that they don't love their job. It's just they don't love creating content for the company that they work for. So I'm hoping you can like walk us through that a little bit. Companies finding the right partner for them, and then marketers also finding the right company to work for.
Yeah, as stupid as this analogy is, it's like trying to find your significant other. It's business, yes, but like if your values and like if they're against, if your values don't align, then there's no point in even trying to make it work, because at some point you're going to hit a really big disagreement, and it's like, okay, boom, we put all this time and energy into this and we're not working together anymore. So yeah, try like the best influencer partnerships or whatever are also when the influencer is naturally aligned with your business. Like I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, but like Michael Cera, do you know Michael Cera, the actor? Like he was in an ad for CeraVe, like the lotion. And like, that just makes sense. Like it literally makes perfect sense. And both parties are happy, and most importantly, customers think it's hilarious and customers are happy. And now we're talking about it, so it was obviously effective. But yeah, definitely establishing it from the forefront. Like, okay, is this law firm going to want memes? Probably not. Okay, is this D2C coffee brand going to want memes? Maybe. So let's see, and let's check that out.
Yeah, I resonate with that a lot. I love the humor aspect of that as well. But again, it's about being central to the audience, right? Okay, it's really being focused on that. I want to pivot the audience just a little bit here, because we're talking about it. This is something that Mallory and I are super big. I know you are as well, on building community, right? We love our Trainual community. We love everyone who's on this call or on our call today. For tuning in today and for tuning in the past. And we try to foster a big sense of community here with Trainual. And this is a powerful way to create raving fans, is building community. So I'd love to hear how you specifically create opportunities for your fans to connect with each other and with your brand.
Yeah. So that aspect of connecting with each other is huge, and I'm still trying to perfect that. But at least for the market of millennials, the route to that is a like community that we're in the process of building, as far as like a separate like community where people can join, separate from the comments and everything. But for fostering that community, there's so many tiny quick wins you can get. And I've been doing this for like I try to do this with as many brands as possible. Like, and it's like if someone comments on a post or reshares your post to their story, it's like, okay, go to their Instagram. If they're a public profile, hit one of their posts with a like, maybe comment like an emoji or something. It's like a subtle thing you can do. And the reason I discovered that strategy is because a brand did that to me back in like freshman year of college when I did have Instagram. And it was like exhilarating. I immediately told my friends, I'm like, dude, it was like a local craft brewer. I'm like, they commented on my post. Like, this is sick. And then I realized, oh, that's how you stimulate word of mouth marketing through social media. And so those are like the tiny quick wins you can do with your brand, even on LinkedIn. Like your brand account, just go on their post, comment something funny, like nice post, Ginger. Like, oh, we love that, Jen. Like, that was a fantastic post. That's how I foster community from brand accounts to like the individual followers. I think that answered your question, but
yeah. Have you ever heard of Primal Kitchen? I'm like a big health food nut. So like some people have heard of it and some people haven't. But I used to share a lot of food content. Speaking of burnout, like I got so burned out, like managing LinkedIn and like this different page where I was sharing recipes and then also handling, content for Trainual. so I don't share as much, but back when I was sharing a lot more of like my recipes on Instagram, Primal Kitchen actually reposted one of my photos to their page. Like they were like, hey, can we share this as like our own picture on the Primal Kitchen Instagram page? They have like over 100,000 followers. And when I tell you I rode that high for so long and never bought from any other, dressing provider ever, like Primal Kitchen every time, like no question. I rode that high for a long time. And it was just such a subtle thing where it's like, I'm the one who put in all the work to create the photo and to create the recipe and everything. But, and all they had to do was share it. But it definitely benefited them more than me.
Yeah. It's like if you meet a celebrity and they're very nice to you, like you're going to immediately be like, oh, I love them. Or if they're an artist, you're going to be like, I'm listening to their music because they were kind to me. Like this just happened to me a week ago, which is hilarious.
I love how this is a concept that translates well from social media to just face to face, right? Something we try to do a lot. I mean, I love what Mallory just talked about. She does this. She's a practitioner of this, where she goes and if someone comments on her content, she comments on theirs, right? That's something I've tried to do as well. I mean, you think about what we can do in terms of our customers when we're having face-to-face conversations with them, and how we can foster that same type of community. I'm a big believer in like building raving fans of others within our organization, where talking about someone else positively to someone else, right? That they may be involved with in some way, shape, or form. But great, you can do this with customers, and you build this sense of community among your customers. We try to do this as often as possible within our own Trainual Insiders Facebook and Slack community groups, where someone calls something out, we call them out. It's like, check this out. You should check. You should reach out to see what they've said. That builds people up. That makes people feel good about your brand. Makes people feel good about the community they're part of. I think that's always especially on social and those environments, it's kind of hard. You don't want to put yourself out there too far because you don't want to feel or look stupid, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we can foster that sense of, hey, this is cool. It's a cool group. I've never seen these people, but I kind of sort of like them, because I feel good about when I post and when I'm able to share what they're able to share with me.
Yeah. And I will say too, like the algorithm, whether that's the LinkedIn algorithm, the IG algorithm, whatever social media platform you're on, like X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it these days, their algorithm, so we'll just call it the algorithm, does not reward takers. Like if you are just posting and expecting that you're going to like reach this massive following, it's just not going to happen. Like you have to be a giver first. And I would say be a giver always. Otherwise, like it's kind of a vanity thing. I think you're doing it for the wrong reasons. But especially when you're getting started, you have to lean into being a giver. And I would say like, as my audience has gotten bigger, I've been able to dial that back where I'm not spending so much time, because like nobody wants to be out on socials forever. But in the beginning, the more you can give, go comment, go like, the algorithm definitely rewards that behavior more than it does somebody who's just posting.
Yeah, it's called social media, so be social.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Said so simple and elegantly. Love it. Okay, so personalization and making customers feel valued and appreciated can go a long way in building the loyalty that we're talking about with our stories. What are some of the ways you personalize those interactions that you're talking about making with your fans and your customers so that they feel special and so that they feel like they're part of an exclusive community? So for us, I'll give you an example. We love to surprise and delight. So like if I see somebody who's just constantly in the Trainual comments championing the templates that we're sharing and just like, oh my gosh, your memes are fire, and they're just always the first one to comment, I'm usually in their DMs with a code that I almost just like said the beginning part of it. Should have been so bad. Like, here's my credit card information. But like I reach out to them with a code in their DMs, and it gives them access to our swag store so that they can have some Trainual swag, which people are like, man, I got this because I am a true Trainual fan, and they wear that thing with honor. So I'm curious to see like what some of your strategies are for being in the comments.
Yeah. So we do this like a couple ways. Like one of the most subtle ways is just by referring to them their first name. That's just something funny. But also what I like to do off of that part of like going to their profile and commenting and liking on their stuff. Like if I can go to their profile and I see like, oh, they went to a pizza place called Michael's and posted it. Like I'll like comment off of their comment on our post. I'll be like, oh, like, did you get pepperoni on the Michael's pizza? So I do that with the marketing millennials, and that's one of those tiny things. But to your point, like you were saying earlier about growing on socials, and when you get to a point where you have a bigger audience, it's hard to get a ton of those intimate interactions. So it's like a win to get a couple of those a week and get a couple of those on one post. So when you start off and you're getting 3 likes and 1 comment a week, maybe it's like, obviously you can handle all that. But when you're really scaling and you're getting 50 comments, 150 comments a post, it's like, all right, you got to pick your wins here. Okay. All right. Just to your point, Mallory, this is Omar. They've been commenting on our posts more often than everybody else. Let's respond to them. But those are things we're trying to really elaborate on. And I know Trainual, you guys have a great handle on that. And that's like, just like that community piece of like the separate community off of social, that's something we're working towards to really step up.
I love that. So for those that are listening today, what would you say is your biggest takeaway? Like if they take nothing else away from this conversation, what would you want them to leave and maybe like have in the back of their minds or go and like implement in their own personal brands or companies, whatever that looks like? Especially considering like how evergreen and like changing I guess that was like an oxymoron because evergreen and changing are like 2 totally different things. Ever changing was where my brain was trying to go with that. But ever changing, algorithm and trends and just the new things on social, like what's one thing that you can say consistently people can take away?
All right. It sounds selfish and it sounds stupid. But if it's from a brand's perspective or a personal brand perspective, create with yourself in mind too. So like create stuff that you can do for the long haul. So like prioritize yourself a little bit, as stupid as that sounds. Because if people see, like if you're watching a comedian and this comedian's hilarious and you know that they're speaking true to themselves and that comedian's proud to be saying this joke, the same translates to social media. Like, oh, this company, like, even though it's getting 2 likes, I can see that they talk about this theme of events confidently every single week. Like, I admire that. I respect that. And at the very least, you can get respect from an audience, but create with yourself in mind is, I would say, like the thing to, but not too much that you forget about who you're speaking to. There's a fine line there, but keeping yourself in mind.
I'm going to share this as we kind of head into our wrap up here. This is a quote from Ken Blanchard. So Ken Blanchard, I mentioned him at the beginning. He wrote a book called Raving Fans, which is primarily geared towards customer service. But I love this because it's really powerful in terms of this is how you do it. Your customers don't want to be satisfied. They want to be wowed, delighted, and blown away by an experience that exceeds their expectations. And one thing he also said was that it's better to be consistently great than to have bursts of amazing, right? So that's something to kind of keep in mind as you keep building their brand and keep putting yourself out there with your content. So I want to share that real quickly as we close.
I love that.
Solid takeaways. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Aiden. We loved having you. We loved seeing all the memes that you share. So keep making us laugh, and we'll keep following along on your journey.
Thank you, Mallory. Thank you, Shawn. This was fun.
Yeah, good to have you, Aiden. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Just let us know in the chat if you like this session. Give us some love. Let's all thank Aiden for being here with us today. Really appreciate you. And we'll look forward to seeing you all on our next one coming up next month. We'll send the details, Ginger. I saw your question. When's the next one? We'll send the details out here in the near future.
Yeah, so we share the details in our Trainual Insiders, and if you came here from socials, we'll share it on LinkedIn, and we will also share it on Instagram and our broadcast channel. So there'll be lots of places to hear about it. We do this monthly, so definitely come back and join us again.
Yep, and we'll be sending out a recap out to you all with the recording and a bunch of other goodies along with that, including some templates. So good stuff coming your direction. Watch for that in your email inbox.
I can't believe I almost forgot about that. Aiden created a process with us for this session. So we actually have a content marketing process that you can go and implement in your business. Super detailed, amazing process that we are super excited to share. So we will send that out as well.